people will say things like, well, let's just tax the rich more. Look, a couple things about taxing the rich more. First off, look at the numbers. Don't look at social media, look at the numbers, and you will see that the rich are already paying the lion's share of taxes. I think it's something like the richest, what is it, 1% pay something like 20% of all taxes. The richest 50% pay 97% of all taxes. Right?
That's right.
So that's
the rich
item
are
number one.
The rich are the only people actually paying taxes.
Right, yeah. Item number two is, even if you were to say, okay, I don't care how much they're paying, let's just make them pay more, and you took every penny they have, it's still not enough.
And you can't do it next year.
Oh, yeah. Then you don't have any rich people, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's only really one well, there are many answers here, but the problem is so obvious. We spend more than we take in. These two numbers need to be at least the same. We should take in more than we spend, but they need to be at least the same.
Yeah, you're right, and people will agree with us when we say that. People left, right, and center. And then they'll ask, if it's that simple, how come nobody's doing it? And the answer is because each one of us who agree wholeheartedly that the government needs to spend less money, when the question comes, okay, what should we cut? Each one of us has something different that we don't want cut, and will fight tooth and nail to prevent getting cut.
That's right.
And then you get no cuts.
And look, you can literally cut anything at all in your life, in the world, whatever, by 5 or 10%. And have a difference, but a livable difference. And we're not even willing to do that. And that would put us pretty close, actually. If we were willing to do that, then we could see what other tweaks we needed to make. Just cutting everything by 10%. When you and I worked it out, we figured 15% across the board. And
yes.
That's the cut you need to make, something like that. And then for 6 years, you've got to hold the line without increasing spending a single penny.
Right.
And that's going to have effects on the economy, right? That's going to make people's lives kind of miserable. And yet, that's the necessary first step.
Yeah, it is. And I think economically you get a couple of effects. One, clearly, there are people who, you and I could cut 10%. Most people who are listening to us could cut 10%. There's a lot of people who can't.
That's right.
That's one problem you're going to have.
And those are exactly the same people that a lot of this money goes to.
Yeah, right. But on the flip side, I think if you were to tell Americans, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to cut everything 15%, we're going to hold no increases for 6 years, while all of that is incredibly hard, I think you also set up Americans to understand that things are going to be way better in year 7.
That's right.
Than they would otherwise be.
That's right.
And so, all right, we tighten our belts for 6 years, but we know things are going to be much better still, and better for our kids and their kids and so forth.
And Ant, I've said this since I was a boy. I think my mother used to say it too. I can withstand anything, literally anything, if you tell me when it will end.
Yes, right.
You can't be in an overwhelming hell with no determined endpoint. But if you say you're going to have to tighten your belt pretty significantly for the next 7 years, I could make peace with that.
Yep.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah, but notice what happens. By not doing that, it does become an open-ended thing. You know, from my perspective, this is never going to end.
Well, it is.
Well, it's going to, by the laws of mathematics, it's going to end. And the longer we wait, the worse the end's going to be. The worse
it will be. It's going to, and for people who are just kind of casually wondering what the end looks like, it looks exactly like Venezuela.
Yeah,
except
it does.
Worse because there's so many more of us.
And I suggest we're already starting to see the beginnings. The Fed, of course, Fed just cut interest rates. It was about this time last year that the Fed was saying, a number of economists were noting that inflation was sticky. It just wasn't coming down. It wasn't coming down. And all the forecasts are showing that inflation is going to stay elevated compared to what it used to be. I claim that's what's going on.
If only a couple of guys could have predicted exactly that. Oh, wait, that was us.
Yeah, because ultimately what happens here, and we'll go into more detail on it in next time's episode, but basically what's happening is we're getting this higher inflation as the cost of the federal government running these nonstop deficits.
Yep. Yeah, that's right. So on the one hand, from earlier in this very episode, we've got a couple of things driving up prices. And then on the other hand, we got a couple of other things driving up prices. The result, not surprisingly, is that prices will be driven up and they will stay there. And people forget, and I don't know how they forget, but depending on who happens to hold office at any given point in time, they will announce, with no data to support it, that inflation is zero. It's not zero and it's never zero, so shut up. But worse yet, people believe it. And I can't understand how they believe it if they leave their homes. Because I'm not allowed to go to the grocery store because I have a meltdown every time I walk in. We talked about this earlier. And why do I have a meltdown? Because I see how much my beloved Coke Zero costs and I can't buy it. Right? I just can't. And these are the choices you have to make because there are trade-offs to everything. And when everything gets more expensive, you don't get to have the things you want. And politicians will say, look at that. We got inflation under control. And if they ever did that, which they don't, prices are now at a much higher level and they never go back. Right? There's de-inflation and there's disinflation.
Yeah, you're right. And I want to go back to the statement you just said because it's a beautiful quote. You said, as prices rise, we can't have what we want. And let me add to that. We can't have what we want because the government is getting what it can't afford. We are literally paying for that deficit spending every time we go to the grocery store and pay way more for food than we used to.
Yeah. Now I can't have Doritos for crying out loud. Great.
Words and Numbers is a CiVL original podcast. We work with CiVL to advance their mission of upgrading civilization by exploring ideas that promote civic equality and cooperation. We believe the most pressing issues humans face, war, poverty, debt, tribalism, arise from coercive institutions that bring out the worst in us. We at CiVL look to voluntary solutions to these and other problems. We invite you to explore CiVL's new platform at civil.com. That's CiVL.com.